Hi and welcome to Ivy English. I'm Angela.
And I'm Wesley.
Today is the 23rd of July. We're on page 65 of the magazine, and our title today is A Brief History of Online Shopping, and we're on the second half of this article.
好，今天呢，我们要讲的是昨天讲那篇文章的第二部分啊。那我们这个文章的标题，中文标题是1990网购崛起。
So yesterday we kind of explored the sort of seemingly unlikely fact that online shopping, the first online shopping purchase ever made, happened when I was still in grade school. Because the bulk of online shopping being a normal thing for normal people to do has only happened in like less than the last 10 years. Like online shopping has never been a real thing until the last 10 years. So the fact that it had existed in some form for 35 years is kind of interesting.
好，所以呢，这个网上购物大概就是最近10年才开始火红啊。但是呢，昨天我们的文章里面看到说，哇，原来这个最早的一笔网上的购物，网络购物呢，大概是35年前啊，甚至于更久之前所发生的。
Because I can't remember anything in the 90s. I never thought about buying anything on the internet in the 90s. And even in the 2010s, if you had to buy something, it was like very sketch and something very special. But now people just buy their groceries and stuff on the internet. They buy food on the internet. They order food on the internet. It's wild. Yeah, to me, to us olds.
Yeah, 所以现在真的网络购物非常的发达哈，你买食物买什么的，通通在网络上面买，买衣服买鞋子都是透过网络。
Yes. So what we're going to talk about today about online shopping is the dramatic and sudden takeover of our lives by online shopping. And so let's dive in and read the article. These days, online shopping is experiencing dramatic growth. With the COVID-19 pandemic, people in many parts of the world are staying home much more and even working remotely. A lot of them are using the net to buy exactly what Jane Snowball did, groceries, to avoid being infected by the virus. Observers believe the disease has sped up the use of the internet to purchase goods by at least 2 to 3 years. As such, it's likely that the pandemic will be seen as another milestone in the history of online shopping. Let's take a look at some other major moments in the history of online shopping. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon.com, is now one of the richest men in the world. But back in 1994, he was just a young man with a bold new idea, selling books online. Since the internet was still in its early ages, it was a risky move. Even Bezos had his doubts and told investors there was a 70% chance that his business idea would fail. Also in that same year, Pizza Hut became one of the first established companies to sell to consumers over the internet. A year later, AuctionWeb, an online auction site which was renamed eBay in 1997, appeared. For Japanese consumers, a milestone occurred in 1997 with the start of Rakuten, which has become that nation's most popular site for online shopping. 2 years after Rakuten began, Alibaba, now one of the world's largest retailers and e-commerce companies, opened its operations in China. Data on shopping habits around the world show a continuing upward trend in online shopping, with growth rates increasing. In other words, when it comes to e-commerce, there is no turning back. Okay, so these days, the article states, or the second half of the article states, online shopping is experiencing dramatic growth. If you experience growth, you're experiencing getting bigger and bigger. Dramatic growth is like off the scales kind of growth, like super fast growth.
好 ，dramatic 在这里可以翻成这个骤然的或者很急剧的意思啊，它不一定永远只能翻戏剧化的哈，所以在这里就是它这个很急剧的成长。所以这个句子他说啊，这个现在呢，这个网上购物它正经历了一个非常急剧的成长。
Now, with the COVID-19 pandemic, which we are all very well familiar with, people in many parts of the world are staying home much more. At least the middle class are. And even working remotely. If your job allows you to work remotely, you are working remotely.
with 就是随着这 COVID-19 这个传染呢，这个或者是这个全球性的一个疫情那 people in many parts of the world 这个世界上很多地方的人 are staying home much more 他们都更待在家里面，更长的待在家里面they are staying home much more 甚至于他们是正在怎么样 working remotely 就是远距工作remotely 就是距离很远的那这个remote R-E 就是 back 那个 mote 字根就是 move 的意思 move back 一直往后移越移越远的意思，所以 remote 就是 distant 那 located far away 的意思我们也可以说这个 working from home 就是在家工作
And a lot of them are using the net or the internet to buy exactly what Jane Snowball did. Groceries. Groceries are food, but not food that's ready-made. It's food that you can use to cook. So they're buying groceries to avoid being infected by the virus by going out in public. They would rather have it delivered to their door by another human being who has to go out in public.
好，所以呢 a lot of them 就是有很多人呢他们都使用 the net 网路来买 exactly 就是完全一样不是别的就是什么呢就是 what Jane Snowball did did 就是 bought 的意思，所以很多人现在用网路来买的就跟这个Jane Snowball 当初买的一模一样，同样的东西，什么东西呢？Groceries 好 groceries 这个地方各位要注意它中文翻成杂货但其实 grocery 主要指的是这个食材之类的东西所以你去买菜那个买菜那个菜在英文里面你就可以用 grocery 这个字
I mean, of course, it includes staples like toilet paper and things.
Yeah.
But generally, groceries is about food plus items for living.
Yeah. 好，所以 groceries 那主要是食物但它当然也包含了一些日常用品也可以算是 groceries 所以这个但我们讲刚刚不过还是一样，你如果说去买菜那个其实是 grocery shopping
Yeah.
好，那所以这个买这些东西目的是要干嘛？它要 avoid 要避免 being infected 被感染by the virus 大家都不出门了怕被感染，所以都在家里面用网络买东西了。
Observers, people who look at this sort of thing, believe that the disease, the fact that COVID exists and is a pandemic, has sped up the use of the internet to purchase goods by at least 2 to 3 years. So sped up the use of internet to do something. It's sped up the fact that people use this tool. So how common this tool is being used, how commonly it's used has been sped up by 2 to 3 years. So it might have taken 2 or 3 more years to create this much consumption at the level we're experiencing now had the pandemic not happened.
所以 observers 就是观察家，他们认为 believe 他们认为呢，这个 the disease 就是这一次的疫情呢 has sped up 就是加速什么东西呢？加速了网络的使用来买东西，就是加速了用网络购买东西这样的一个使用the use of the internet to purchase goods 好，那加速多少呢加速的那个量我们用 by 这个介系词来表达，所以加速的量是至少加速了2到3年。
As such, or that being true, or since this is the situation, it's likely that the pandemic will be seen as another milestone in the history of online shopping. So when people talk about online shopping as a history, they're going to have to include this pandemic as a thing because it did really increase the extent of the use of internet to purchase things.
好 as such 就是在这样的情况之下那在这样的情况之下呢 it is likely that 就很可能这一个 pandemic 这一次的疫情 will be seen as 会被视为 another milestone 另外一个里程碑什么的里程碑呢 in the history of online shopping 在网络购物的历史上面这个疫情可能被视为另外一个里程碑。
So let's take a look at some other major moments in the history of online shopping. What else is there?
那我们来这个看一看其他的 major moments 重大的时刻我们来看一看在这个 online shopping 的历史上面的一些其他的重大时刻。
So we'll start with Jeff Bezos, and he's the founder of Amazon.com, and this is a good starting place because Amazon is the American version of Alibaba, of Rakuten. You know, like every country or all of the major countries have somebody that started up some version of internet delivery. And he thought of it first or most successfully, and he's now one of the richest men in the world.
好，所以 Jeff Bezos 那他是谁呢？童伟格告诉你，他是 Amazon.com 的这个的创立者啊。那他现在呢是世界上最有钱的人之一。
But back in 1994, he was just a young man, or a man in his 30s, I don't know how young that is, with a bold new idea, selling books online. Now, I just want to say, this sentence makes it seem like he was like, oh, all I want to do is sell books. Kind of like when we talked yesterday about that dude who was like, oh, all I wanted to do was make it convenient for people to be able to, old people to start shopping. And I'm going to say that this is part of the mythos of Jeff Bezos. Actually, Jeff Bezos said, what industry can I most easily disrupt by consolidating it into an online empire? And he picked publishing because publishing up until then was such a archaic and stodgy business with very little margins and very little profit and very fixed way of doing business. So he's like, oh, this industry will be easy to disrupt. I can easily compete with these people on the internet. So he picked publishing not because he loved books, but because the industry was easily attacked.
好，所以呢，我们先看这个句子的意思。他说呢，在1994年的时候呢，他只不过是个年轻人，那他有一个 bold new idea。bold 就是大胆的，bold 这种大胆就是 fearless and daring 那通常 bold 还表示怎么样？他愿意冒险。所以这个 ready to take risks 这个是 bold 的意思。他有一个很大胆的有一点风险但是蛮大胆的一个新的 idea， 就是呢他要在网络上面卖书。那刚刚 Angela 老师讲到说这个句子看起来好像是他只是想卖书而已，好像很单纯，跟我们昨天看到那个状况一样，他只是要帮那老太太买一些 grocery 而已。但是其实呢这个Bezos 他当时是想说我要想办法 disrupt， 就是我要去颠覆。好，我要颠覆某一个产业，好，然后呢，然后借此赚钱，打倒那个产业。那他当时呢选上了卖书，是因为当时这个出版业还有书店这个行业呢算是很古老的一个行业了哈。那做事情的方法都已经固定了那所以他会觉得说，我很容易就可以把你们打倒啊。那事实上他也做到了哈，因为其实我去美国去几次就看到其实。跟我第一次去的时候差很多。第一次去的时候还看到很多小书店那个小小的书店还能够存活。那甚至于那种大的书店，那种大的连锁书店，我进去逛很快乐。那个书店好大一间，那里面好多书可是呢，后来这个听说的那些书店一家一家的倒因为有网络购书呀，所以这个东西其实后面不是那么简单的那这些资本家他其实对于资本家他成功的故事，大家其实都要看，他不是只有那一面而已。
Actually, Bezos' plan from the beginning was to create a monopoly, to create a place where only Amazon was where you bought things. That's been his goal from the beginning. He just started with books because it seemed the most accessible market for it.
Yeah.
And he was right, unfortunately.
Yeah. 所以 Bezos 其实一开始他就想要打造一个帝国他的理想，或者很多人讲他的理想，他其实就是以后你不管买什么东西，你就只有跟我买就其他这些店通通可以不用存在了，你就跟我买就好了。
It just kind of fits into my theory that before people decided to do empires by getting armies together, now they decide to do empires by putting a company together. It's the same megalomania. It's just a different venue.Yeah,
所以其实我讲这个在未来的世界大家可以慢慢注意到，所谓的帝国跟以前的帝国不一样。以前帝国可能是要很大的这个军队很庞大的军队，但现在的帝国其实很多时候是在你看不到的地方，你没有想到的地方，其实已经有一个帝国在那边了。
I mean, honestly, I think like in future, the main issue is that companies are going to be competing with countries for world domination. We already have like the Republic of Google,the Republic of Microsoft, online, they're like, there's identity systems now.
Yeah.
I mean, for real identity systems. Before it was kind of like, ha, I have a Google identity. And now you're like, oh my God, this is becoming a real thing.
Yeah. 所以这个未来的世界，这大的公司它不但富可敌国，他们的 power 可能也会超过很多的国家所以
Probably already does.
Yeah, 所以这是未来的世界。
They just haven't exercised it yet.
Yeah, 所以我们就等着看吧。Yeah.Anyways,
back to Bezos. So at the time, The internet was in its early stages. This was the Wild West era of 1994, which we talked about earlier in terms of the hacking. And so it was a risky move. It was like getting people to invest in an internet-based business model is like, yeah, you're going to do that? Okay.
Yeah. 所以 since 由于这个网络当时是 still in its early stages， 它仍然在它早期的发展阶段，所以它的这个想法是个 risky move， 是一个 risky 就是这个有风险的move 就是一个行动，它的这种做法是有风险的。
Even Bezos had his doubts and told investors there was a 70% chance that his business idea would fail. Honestly, though, when you tell people who are thinking about giving you money that you're pretty sure you're going to fail, they want to give you the money more because they feel like you're being honest with them and that they can trust you. So that's probably just a sales pitch.
Yeah.
But also, he probably did think that.
Yeah, 所以甚至于 Bezos 他自己呢都 had his doubts， 就是他自己都有怀疑怀疑说他到底是不是真的能够做到，所以他也告诉他的这个 investors， 他的投资者呢说 there was a 70% chance that 就是有一个 70% 的几率什么几率呢？他的 business idea， 他的这个商业的想法呢 would fail， 可能会失败当然他可能真的这样想，但是这其实有时候也是一种行销的手段因为他这样讲了之后，他的投资者可能就会觉得说这个人还蛮老实的，好吧，那我再多给他一点钱吧。
And so we're switching over from Bezos to Pizza Hut. Also in that same year, 1994, Pizza Hut became one of the first established companies to sell to consumers over the internet. And I remember this, the wonder of knowing that you could order a pizza on the internet, which most people didn't even have in their houses. It was like something that rich people had.
Yeah, 所以在同一年呢，那个 Pizza Hut 它成为了第一家 established companies， 就是已经建立起来甚至有点老牌的这个企业established， 就它不是新的公司，是大家都已经很熟悉的一个公司它是这样的一个公司里面第一家来 sell to consumers， 就 sell 这是卖商品给这个消费者 consumers， 透过什么来卖呢？ over the internet， 所以Pizza Hut 是第一家 established company 去用网络卖东西给顾客的，卖商品给顾客的人。
Actually, one of the earliest marketing for people to have the internet on their personal computers was this thing called Prodigy, and it was marketed as a way to let your kid get ahead in school. And at the time, I didn't know it was the internet. I was just like, what is this mysterious Prodigy thing I keep hearing advertised about? And like years later, I was like, they were selling an internet connection. Like, holy cow, what the hey?
Yeah, 所以最早也有人就是用网络来，其实他要卖的是网络这个东西但是其实他会包装成说可以让你的小孩成为天才等等的。
It was just this mysterious insider knowledge thing.
Yeah.
It was just the internet, but at the time, that was a big deal. And also, how do you describe the internet to people who didn't know what it was?
Yeah, 真的是这样子。
So a year later, Auction Web, an online auction site, so where they sold pre-existing things to people in an auction style where people could bid up the price. And that was kind of an amazing new thing. And that was renamed eBay in 1997. And so 1995 is when Auction Web got started up. And I had no idea eBay was that old. Holy cow.
所以一年之后呢 Auction Web， 那童伟格告诉你它是一个 online auction site， 是一个线上的拍卖网站which was renamed， 它后来被重新命名为 eBay在1997年被重新命名为 eBay。 那这个资讯都是童伟格说明的 Auction Web 是什么东西。那这句话主要的结构是 A year later Auction Web appeared， 就是 Auction Web 这公司呢出现了。
So for Japanese consumers, a milestone occurred in 1997 with the start of Rakuten, which has become that nation's most popular site for online shopping.
好，然后呢，对于日本的消费者来讲一个里程碑是发生在1997年那各位可以注意到这个动词的 collocation 就是 a milestone occurred， 可以用 occur 这个动词。好，所以一个里程碑发生了在1997年。那怎么样发生的呢？是 with the start of， 是由这家公司开始的那这个公司就是这个Rakuten， 就是乐天株式会社。那 which 就指这家公司呢 has become， 它已经成为了 that nation's， 就是日本的 most popular site for online shopping 就成为日本的网络购物的最受欢迎的一个网站。
And 2 years later, after Rakuten began, Alibaba, now one of the world's largest retailers and e-commerce companies, opened its operations in China. And I remember the first time I came across Alibaba. That was in the early days, somewhere in the 2010s. It was this incredibly chaotic site full of like machine parts and all this like wholesale stuff that a consumer would never be interested in. And I just couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand what it was about. I definitely knew it wasn't for me. I didn't know what it meant. And if you had asked me then, would it become like one of the most largest online e-commerce companies in the world, I would have been like, really?
Yeah.
But you could see that it had some sort of energy and movement to it. But I couldn't understand it. I was like, what is this? And now I'm like, oh.
Yeah, 所以他刚刚开始出来的时候，很多人都没有想到他后来会这么大。
Yeah.
所以这里讲到说，这个在乐天株式会社开始之后的2年呢，阿里巴巴那同伟可告诉你，他现在是世界上最大的这个零售商 retailers， 还有电子商务公司之一他现在非常的大。那他怎么样？他 opened its operations in China， 他在中国开始了他的业务operations 是业务，包括可能工厂公司作业中心等等的，他开始了。
Now, data on shopping habits around the world show a continuing upward trend in online shopping. And I'm going to say that this data, which is happening in 2020 and 2021, is probably pandemic-driven. And are we going to keep going up like that? Is the pandemic going to keep going on like this? With growth rates increasing? Don't know.
Yeah. 所以这个后疫情时代这个世界会怎么样转变？现在都很难说不过我们看到这个句子，他说 data 就是一些数据on shopping habits 一些购买习惯的数据around the world 全世界购买习惯的一些数据呢 show 显示了一个 continuing 就是持续的 lasting sustained 或者是 ongoing这样的一个 upward trend 上升的趋势 upward 就是上升的往上的那 in online shopping 就所有的全世界的这些购物习惯的这个数据呢，都显示 online shopping 在全世界都有一个持续上升的趋势那 with growth rates increasing 就它的成长率是一直增加的。
I mean, I was wrong about Alibaba, so I might be wrong about this as well.
Yeah, who knows?
In other words, when it comes to e-commerce, there is no turning back. We're not going to go to how it was before.
Yeah, 所以换句话说当我们谈到这个电子商务的时候呢 there is no turning back 就是没有回头路回不去了Yeah.
So, we have 4 questions for you here about the article of both days. Number 1 of which is, which of the following is true about Jane Snowball?
好，底下关于 Jane Snowball 的这个叙述哪一个正确呢？
A very simple story. It's D. Tesco delivered her groceries, and she gave money to the delivery person.
答案是 D 好，这个 Tesco 送到他的这个食品杂货送到他这边去，然后呢他付钱给这个送来的人。
And number 2, what was Michael Aldrich's opinion of the first case of online shopping?
好，所以这个 Michael Aldrich 他对第一笔这个网络的购物有什么想法呢？
The answer was B. The answer is B. It was an enjoyable experiment, and that's it.
答案是 B 好，那是一个蛮愉快的实验。
And number 3, why does the author suggest that the COVID-19 pandemic might be regarded as a milestone in online shopping?
好，作者为什么说新冠疫情可能是会被视为网购的一个里程碑呢？
The answer is C. People spent more time at home and avoided going out shopping.
答案是 C 好，因为人们花更多的时间在家，而且避免出门购物。
And number 4, according to the Day 2 passage, what would a person not be doing on the internet in 1995?
根据第2天的文章一个人不可能在1995年的网络上面做什么事情呢？
And that's C, posting on social media. You wouldn't be doing that until Facebook was invented at least 10 years later.
Yeah, 所以答案是 C 好，在社群媒体贴文，因为那个时候还没有社群媒体。
Well, that was a fascinating trip through recent internet history, and please join us again tomorrow or the next day for more Ivy English. Until then, bye-bye.